Hello and welcome to Mughal Art and Culture. I'm your host, Jackie Van Dinther. Well, today on the program, we're going to be exploring everything Mughal, a dynasty from the 16th century, something that is still very well known and prominent in South Asian communities here in Hamilton and abroad. Well, we're going to be talking to a couple of experts, some members of the South Asian community here in Hamilton. We'll be looking at some important Mughal monuments, some of the fine artworks and paintings, as well as some Mughal fashion and jewelry that was important to the period as well. But before we get to all of that, let's start with exploring the history of Mughal and the time period. We have Bashar Tayyab with us. Hello, Bashar. Thanks for being with us here today.
Thank you.
You're a member of the South Asian community here in Hamilton, and we've talked to you before on the program.
Oh, certainly. Yes.
I mean, usually we're in the kitchen cooking, but today it's a little different. Yeah. We're talking about the Mughal period. So for those watching who have no idea what that means, tell us, where did the Mughal period start?
Jackie, the Mughal period actually started in, as you said, in the 16th century, and then it lasted for about 3 centuries. But out of those 3 centuries, I think the 16th century was the most important, or the beginning period was more important. And today I'm going to talk to you about that dynasty, because that dynasty was a superpower of its time. And why do I say that they were a superpower? Because they ruled over a vast area of South Asia, and from that South Asia, now today we have 6 or 7 countries: India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Afghanistan, Burma. All these countries were part of one empire, actually. So it was actually an empire, and one of their greatest rulers was Akbar. He ruled for about 53 years.
Wow. And we're going to get to him. We're going to talk to him about him in just a little while. But let's go back to when the period actually started. It's recognized as starting in what,
1523, and it lasted up to 1857, when we had the British come in and take over India, actually.
That's a long time.
I know, it is. And they've had a lasting impact on the entire South Asian culture. All fashion, culture, art, poetry, music, everything is actually today in South Asia is shaped by the Mughal period.
It's incredible.
It's amazing. And believe me, even today's fashions and today's poetry, art, all that, and even not just art, but also architecture, is influenced by the Mughals of the 17th and the 15th century.
Wow.
It's amazing.
So still very connected and relevant.
Oh, totally,
today.
totally.
Bashar, you've brought some pictures with you. Let's maybe have a look at the first one. So
sure.
Tell us about what we're seeing here in this one.
In this one, you can see one of the Mughal emperors holding court. And so this shows how grand and huge they were. They were a very wealthy people. They were not just wealthy, but very powerful and strong. And they had a lot of interest in culture and history and religion. They built a number of monuments, and they had a lot of architecture, and so they built all kind of monuments. Among the monuments I wanted to tell you, we're going to have a later section on monuments, but one of the monuments which they built was very interesting. Was while they built monuments for the tombs or the mausoleums, they also had a monument for a deer, for a pet. You know, the deer pet. So one of the emperors had a pet deer, and he made a monument for his pet.
That's funny.
So they're really grand.
I think things have changed since then. But from what you're telling me right now, Bashar, these people had money, they had power, and they were probably well respected.
Very well respected.
Okay.
And people, the only reason why they were well respected was that they introduced a very good administrative system in South Asia. Their administration was good, people were safe, and they were given opportunities to grow. And because they were well respected, the term Mughal, the English term Mughal came into.
What does Mughal mean? Does it have a meaning?
Yes, it actually means powerful and wealthy.
Oh,
and
there you go.
That's an English term.
A no-brainer.
Right, So it represents the Mughal Empire or the Mughal dynasty, right?
Let's talk about this Akbar.
Right.
Because he's had a lasting impression on the South Asian culture, but more specifically in the Mughal period.
Certainly. Okay, what is amazing about Akbar is he's third in line in the dynasty. And
we have a picture of him here just to show. He's in the green?
He's in the green. He's in the green. And I will tell you, this is a very interesting picture of Akbar because Akbar started ruling at the age of 13, actually. He was very young when his father, who was the emperor, died, and he was kind of forced to take over the throne. And then he was unlettered at that time, and he ruled with the help of his... I know, it's amazing, right? And he had 9 advisors in his court. And we were going to talk about his 9 advisors a little later, but right now I just wanted to focus on this picture.
So what's happening in this picture? He looks like he's kind of looking in love.
Oh,
is he in love?
Actually, this is what it is, right? He's actually in love with this lady, Jodha Akbar. We now know her as Jodha Akbar. She is a Rajput, Indian Rajput. She's a Hindu believer in faith. And Akbar married her out of political convenience. When Akbar married her out of political convenience, Jodha resented the fact that why would she marry somebody out of political convenience, right? He wanted to marry out of love. That doesn't sound like fun. No fun at all. So when she got married to him, she tried her best to impress Akbar, and Akbar wanted to make her happy. So out of this, both trying to make a connection with each other, it ended up into a big love story, and they fell in love with each other. And Akbar actually respected her Hindu culture and her religion. Wow. And to the extent that Akbar became a very, very pluralistic and you could say a tolerant king. And in fact, Akbar was known later on for his tolerance and his pluralism later on. We, unfortunately, Bashar, we'll have to leave it there. Sure. But at least the viewers at home get a sense of what the Mughal period was all about, and have certainly painted a nice picture, or an interesting picture anyways, yes, about Akbar. Thank you for that. For more information on what is going on in the South Asian community here in Hamilton, you can go to southasianheritage.org. And if you happen to bump into Bashar on the street, pick her brain about Akbar. She knows a lot about them. But we'll leave it at that, Bashar. Okay. Thanks so much. Thank you very much,
And coming up after the break, we'll be talking about Mughal monuments. We'll see you then. Welcome back to Mughal Art and Culture, brought to you by the South Asian Heritage Association. I'm your host, Jackie Van Dinther. Well, just before the break, we talked to you about Mughal history, why it's important to South Asian communities, and its connection and its relevance to today as well. Well, we're going to move on now to some of the coolest buildings in the world. Yes, they are found in many parts of South Asia, and I have a member of the South Asian community here in Hamilton to talk to us a little bit more about that. Ashok Kumar is with us here today, and let's talk about the significance of some of these buildings that you're going to talk to us about. I mean, why is this an important period for monuments in the Mughal period?
Mughals ruled India for about close to 21 years. And during that time, they built beautiful monuments. Now, the monuments which I'm going to talk about today, they could be categorized in 2 broad categories. Okay. One is where they lived when they're alive, and the other is where they're resting now when they're dead. Right. That means palaces and forts and the mausoleums.
That's really cool. So you get a chance to experience sort of the living part of their life, right. So to speak, and then sort of the afterlife and the tombs where you get to check out as well.
Right, they're resting there now.
Okay, well, let's start with a picture that a lot of us are very familiar with. This is probably the most well-known monument, the Taj Mahal.
Taj Mahal is one of the most talked about structure in the world, actually. And this one was really, this falls in the category of resting place. This is not where they lived, the Mughals. This was built by Shah Jahan for his wife. When his wife died, then he built this monument, like mausoleum for her. So this was built, it took about close to 17 years to build this structure. Wow. And 20,000 workers worked on that.
It's incredible.
And it's built off pure white marble, but inside the marble, there are inlays of different colored marbles too. So it looks very good. There are inscriptions of Quran on that in colored marbles. And this actually, Taj Mahal, you cannot describe it. You have to see it.
Absolutely. And, a picture just doesn't do it justice, does it?
And not only that, you have to see it at different times of day and night. And the most interesting time to see this Taj Mahal is in the night of full moon. And I happened to be there once when I was there.
Really?
At full moon, you feel as if the whole Taj Mahal is floating in the air.
Wow.
And there's a little fair during the full moons around the Taj Mahal. And you walk through that and you will not know that you are walking on the ground. You are floating.
That's amazing. We've got a couple of other monuments to talk about. I don't want to take away from them as well.
One quick thing about Taj Mahal, that we say that this Taj Mahal is really built, it's actually a song of symmetry. So if you take a vertical section of Taj Mahal, like you cut right in the middle here,
right,
you can fold the two together completely. So they are very symmetrical. The garden, the structures, the pillars, everything is very symmetrical.
Oh, wow.
So that's a very beautiful example of symmetry.
Let's move on. What else are you going to be showing us here, Ashok?
So that was a monument which is the resting place, but now let's look at where they lived. So these two...
So what do we have here? This is the Agra Fort.
Agra Fort. Now,
are you able to hold that one up,
sure,
just so we can...
So Taj Mahal is built in the city Agra. And right there, beside Taj Mahal, there's a fort. And it's called Agra Fort, built of red stones. Red stone, for some reason, was very popular with Mughals. And they built a lot of forts with that red stone.
What about, is there a significance at all to the red stone used? I mean, the materials, what about the colors?
You know, probably historians will tell you exactly what. I think probably it was easy to get it and also, you know, showed better. But this Agra Fort was a living quarters of the emperors there. And the thing which I want to tell you about Agra Fort, that Agra Fort is right beside Taj Mahal.
Okay.
So when Shah Jahan, who built Taj Mahal, when he was old and he was imprisoned by his son, Aurangzeb, he imprisoned him in this fort. And he used to sit and watch Taj Mahal all the time.
Some incredible history, I'm sure, behind some of these monuments.
When he became old, his eyesight was not good. Then he used to look at Taj Mahal in a small mirror close by, and you see the whole reflection.
I don't want to run out of time here. We got to quickly go through some of these other ones. What do we have here?
Then this is a red fort in India. In Delhi, you can say, no? In Delhi. And see, this was again a living place for the Mughals, the emperor there. And after India became independent from British, that was the place where first time the flag was hoisted. This is again a fort. This is called Shahi Killa. Shahi Killa. This is in Lahore, and this is again a place where they lived. It's a beautiful place inside, huge mosque there, and the entire living. The most important thing about that fort is that inside they have a Sheesh Mahal. Sheesh Mahal is a palace of mirrors. It's a palace of mirrors.
Oh, I see.
And that is really something very unique for that place.
You know, Ashok, we've got a couple of other pictures here, and unfortunately, we just run out of time.
Okay.
But I mean, you can find these pictures online, but the better thing to do is to actually go and visit these places and see them in person, right?
There's no two ways about that. That's what it is. But here, this one, I would like to show you this one. This again is...
we'll end it on here.
Yeah, okay. But this was designed by a female empress. Her name is Noor Jahan. She designed lots of buildings. She was the favorite queen of Jahangir. And there's a lot of stories about her, how they came to know each other and all that. But she designed even her husband's tomb and designed this for her father.
Incredible.
This is the resting place of her father.
Ashok, where can people go for more information on what's going on in the South Asian community?
They can go to the website of South Asian Heritage Fund. What is that exactly?
SouthAsianHeritage.org. I think is what you meant to say. Thanks, Ashok. We'll have more coming up here on Mughal Arts and Culture, fashion and paintings coming up after the break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everyone. You're watching Mughal Art and Culture. I'm Jackie Van Dinther. Well, in this segment, we're going to be talking about the relationship between Mughal history and, of course, the art that came from that important period, the 1600s and the 1700s. Dates back quite a long time, but it's still history and art that you can see in the region today, and of course within the South Asian communities here in Hamilton. Well, we've got a special guest with us here today to talk to us a bit more about this. This is something that she's an expert in, Dr. Monalina Bhattacharya, an art historian, also a Hamiltonian. I'm holding in my hand, Monalina, an inlay, I guess, or this is a decorative plate, but this is something very similar to what you'd find in the Taj Mahal.
Yes, this inlay, it's known as, technically known as Pietradura work, the marble inlay, the colored marble inlay, yeah.
Very, very cool.
You would find it in the Taj Mahal, yes, a lot.
So, I mean, as I just mentioned, Monalina, I'm just going to set this here. Art and history, especially when we're talking about the Mughal period, they're very much intertwined. Why is that?
That's because the rulers, Akbar onwards, Akbar, Jahangir and Shah Jahan, were patrons of art and architecture. They were interested in, for various reasons, they were interested in promoting or in producing art, whether it's in the form of architecture or in the form of painting. Akbar, we know, as is the greatest of the Mughals. He was known for his tolerance, his syncretist views. He came in to the throne at a period of turmoil where you know, there was threat from the Rajputs, there was threat from the Uzbeks. So he was trying to get them all to exist peacefully, coexist peacefully.
He was a peacemaker.
He was a
in
peacemaker.
A sense,
He used this whole concept of peace by Akbar was known as a sul-equal or universal concord. And the other thing that combined that helped him was Akbar's interest in different theologies, and he was interested in the Hindu